Line's good.
Never on!
Whoa.
Hard! Hardly.
Come on, Brent. Line's good. Got real close.
The hair high, right?
Try and hit 2/3.
Have they saved it for her? Yes, they have.
Ooh, welcome to Game of Stones, everybody. I am Sean Graham Scott, alongside, as always, hello, Scott.
Sean, hi. How are you going?
Going good. How about you?
I'm going all right. I just did a bunch of French language training, Sean.
Nice.
They're teaching me how to speak French good.
So when is your English lesson?
Oh, sick burn. So I've got le français est tout là.
Mm-hmm.
So if I break into French for any of this podcast, just let me know and I'll go back, okay?
All right, sounds good. We'll keep that in mind just in case we do get a little French coming through. So, Scott, it's been a while since we talked, of course.
Yeah, since 2 nights ago.
Yes, about 44 hours ago, we recorded our Scotties recap, and fortunately, we were able to get it up in front of two girls in a game, which once theirs is up, it might be up as we record this. I haven't looked at Twitter in a while. Once it's up, they win the Scotties week all the time. They win most weeks, to be honest.
Well, they win the Scotties week anyway because they had a participant.
But that's what I mean. Like, they win it.
Sean, we just have to qualify for the Brier, and then we'll win the Brier week.
Right, piece of cake. Piece of cake.
Let's get on that.
Yeah, so my apologies if you downloaded it on Google Podcasts on Monday morning and got our Simpsons recap. I clicked on the wrong file when I was uploading. Fortunately, it just affected Google, not Apple or any of the other ones, and I could explain why, but I'd rather not. So my apologies for that. Everything did get corrected in the morning, thanks to those of you who pointed it out to us. So check it out if you have not yet, because now, Scott, it is time to turn our attention to the 2021 Tim Hortons Brier.
Yeah, looking forward to it. And just before we move on, yes, the two girls Scotties recap part 1 and part 2 are both up right now.
Okay, so check those out. Last year's was great. I obviously haven't listened to it yet since I didn't know they were out, but last year's was great. Lori had some great behind the scenes stories of all that was going on, and certainly this year more involved with the bubble. If you want to get a sense of what was actually happening out in Calgary while they were there, certainly encourage you to check out Two Girls in a Game this week.
Yeah, it'll be really fun. I think really fun.
Yeah, so Scott, let's get right into the 2021 Tim Hortons Brier. The 2020 Tim Hortons Brier was the last major curling event we had until the Scotties, a crazy event. You were there all week. I was there for the opening weekend, and it was a bonkos event. Great finishes all the way through. I'm sad Kevin Martin missed so many great finishes before championship pool. I think he would have enjoyed the round robin play, but hey, that's up to him. And I think overall, Scott, when you looked at the teams, we went into that event saying maybe the best field ever. A lot of teams could win. Bore out that way where you had 4 teams and a tiebreaker for the last spot. Brad Jacobs had to play 3 games on Saturday, 2 tiebreaks, and then the 3-4 game. Just a really incredible event. And given the situation this year with so many member associations just sending the same team, again, being unable to have a provincial championship, I think we're on tap for another phenomenal week.
Yeah, we talked in the Scotties preview about how many teams could win the event, and you thought 4 and I thought 5.
Yeah.
Looking at this like real quickly, there's 8 teams that I think could win.
Okay, I have 7.
And a couple others that are like on the fringe. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So I have 7 teams that I think could win. I have 3 teams that I would consider fringy. So overall, I have 10 teams that if they made the playoffs wouldn't be shocking necessarily. So who are the 7 that I think we would probably agree on?
So Botcher.
Yeah.
Jacobs. McEwen.
Yep.
Epping.
Yep.
Brad Gushu.
Yeah.
Kevin Cooey.
Yeah.
And Matt Dunstone.
Correct. And so the team that I don't think could necessarily win, but would be on that fringe, I'm guessing you got Gunner there.
Gunner is the one. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the fringe teams is Howard and Laycock.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, so those are 10 teams.
That's crazy. That, like, we talked about the women's game, the depth is really at the world level.
Yeah.
And in the men's game, the depth is in Canada. And I think comparing the two fields really bears that out.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, yeah, last time, as you said, I thought there was 4 teams could win, and you thought there was 5. The 4 teams that I thought could win were the 4 that played on Sunday between the tiebreaker and then the playoffs. So it really did turn out that way. And when you looked at the championship pool on the women's side, great play all week from Quebec, for instance. They struggled in that championship pool. So it's one of these things where the men's side, just right now, as we sit in Canada, is deeper domestically. And that's also reflected in who got invited to the Grand Slams, with only 4 women's teams from Canada being invited to the Grand Slams. A lot more men's teams will stick around in the bubble. So I'm really excited for this because of that. So Scott, I asked you last time as well, which pool do you think is better? And I'm going to ask you again, because I think there's a clear answer here as well.
I think it's Pool B.
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, Pool A, yeah, it's got, yeah.
No, the answer is Pool B.
Okay.
So Pool B has Gushu, Epping, Dunstone, and Cooey in the pool. I feel bad for everybody else because 1, they're going to struggle to get TV games, and 2, they're going to struggle to win games with those 4 teams. And when you look at the rest of the rest of the pool is Newfoundland and Labrador, Greg Smith, Nova Scotia, which we'll talk about. It's Jamie Murphy's team. He's not there. Nunavut, Prince Edward Island, Quebec, round out that pool. Those teams, someone's going to have to go perfect within those teams and then scratch a win against one of the top 4 to have any chance at the championship pool.
Yeah, I would be shocked if it was anybody other than those 4 you talked about that move on to the championship pool from this Pool B.
Yeah, and so over in Pool A, you have Botcher, Gunlickson, Jacobs, McEwen, Howard. So one of those 5 is going to miss the pool play or getting into the championship pool. We can talk about who that could be as we go through, but I think in terms of the top teams, you're looking at Botcher, Jacobs there, and I guess McEwen. It's weird when I think there's 7 teams that could win. I think Pool B is stronger because 4 of those teams are in Pool B and only 3 of them are in Pool A. So it is a little stronger, I think, because of that. But there's not much to choose from on either side.
No, not really. And so like that 4th spot in Pool A will probably come down to either Steve Laycock or Jason Gunlickson, and I'd give Gunner the edge. But you never know, right?
Yeah, Howard could go on a run. I mean, he could have a good week.
Yeah, that's true. That's
right.
true. And we'll talk about his team and who will be there this week a little bit later. But so that's sort of the big picture of the Brier, which, Sean, let me ask you, this sounds like it makes the beginning of the week less compelling than, say, on the women's side, where there was more jockeying for those championship pool positions. But I think the championship pool section will be like a lot more fun. What do you think of that?
I think maybe where I would sort of try to massage that is that in Pool A and Pool B, you're going to have in most draws a real marquee game. And as we saw on the women's side, early losses are going to matter once we get down to the playoffs. So those early games, like draw 1 is Gushu Epping. Like that's a huge game when we're looking down the line at the playoffs. So these teams all have to play each other in the round robin. So those games will be interesting. And if I could just take us back to last year, where all the teams had a full season and were sharper. And if we learned something from the women's side is that the teams aren't going to come in sharp because they haven't played. And last year we saw games where Gunner had to make the crazy, it was Gunner. Gunner had to make the crazy shot against PEI to win, right? That team was able to take him down to the wire. James Grattan is going to give you a game when he is at this event. So don't sleep on him. Scott McDonald can play, and the guys he's playing with know how to play in a Brier. This is Greg Smith's 2nd time, and we know that there's a significant increase in performance from the first to the 2nd time. Mike Fournier has been there before. So even Peter McKay has played before. So I don't think that while there will be blowouts, I think we will see some interesting games between these teams that we have labeled that can't win when they're playing these top teams. Like if you're a top team, whereas you saw Kerry Anderson kind of step into that game against UConn, either half asleep or something, where they fell behind. I don't know, just sort of a crazy set of circumstances that she fell behind. You could see that a little bit here, where some of these teams are going to come up, have good games, and take these to 10th, maybe even 11th ends.
Yeah, I guess so. I wonder if there'll be times when, we start with Greg Smith against Brad Gushu. I think that'd be a fun game to put on TV.
Yep.
And, by the third end, we're moving, like we saw with the game at the Scotties. That was New Brunswick, I think.
Yeah, it was the Melissa Adams game.
Yeah. So, do we start with a matchup and say, oh, this could be fun, and then quickly we're like, ooh, let's go over to that Eddie McKenzie, Mike Fournier game.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think for the fans in Newfoundland and Labrador, they scheduled that game on Wednesday night. It should have been a morning draw, right? Like morning or an afternoon draw. Like, don't put that. That's a 10 o'clock tip in Newfoundland. That seems like a strange choice for the two Newfoundland teams to play, but that's what it is.
Yeah, and you've got Wild Card versus Ontario that night. Wild Card 2.
Yeah, so that'll be your TV game.
So that'll be it'll be Cooey against Epping.
Yeah, yeah. So let's get into this, Scott. Let's go team by team, talking about all 18 squads that are in the bubble as we speak. So let's start in pool number A, and let's go with the let's just go alphabetical here. So let's start at the top of the alphabet, and Brandon Botcher and his squad out of Alberta. Scott, the 3-time defending silver medalist out of Brier. They won the Brier already with a great tweet about the odds for winning that were put out. They tweeted, what are our odds to finish second? Scott, is this the year that Brendan Botcher makes the leap and becomes a Brier champion?
I look at this sort of like the Buffalo Bills that we mentioned on our Scotties podcast. 3 times in a row to get to a final of a Brier is really hard.
Yes.
Really, really hard to do. It takes a lot of skill to do that. They're a great team. But that said, I kind of want to put money on them to finish second just for the hilarity of it. Right? Like
4 in a row?
4 in a row, it would become some sort of curse at that point, right? Where you'd think, like, what is going wrong for this team? Last year we saw them finish top of the tables there at the Brier, win the 1-2 game. So they had rest going in. They weren't sharp in that final. Brendan Botcher especially. Yeah. Not sharp, and it sort of turned into not quite a game pretty quick with a few misses. So we're talking about them first because they're alphabetically. They're also, I think, first or second maybe on the
they're pretty high
merit.
Yeah.
So like they're really good, and I would expect them to not only be in the championship pool but to be in the playoffs for sure, unless something went terribly wrong.
Yeah, I mean, there's only 3 playoff spots, right? And there's really, really good teams. So to say that it'd be shocking for them to miss the playoffs, I don't think it's going to be shocking if anybody misses the playoffs in this event. Maybe. With 3 spots. And again, the fact that nobody has really played competitively at all through the course of the season. I do think that this team does get a bit of a break on the schedule front. They open against Gunlickson on Saturday morning. That's obviously a tough game. Maybe not the toughest that they'll see in the pool. And then they get Northwest Territories, then they get New Brunswick, and then they get Howard. And we'll talk about what's going on with Howard. So out of the possible ways that you could start your event, that's not necessarily easy, but that's easier than it could be. So they might have that chance to shake off the rust with a little more room to air, that little more room for air than if they were playing Jacobs and McEwen early on in the week, for instance.
Yeah, but then that does mean they are playing Jacobs and McEwen later in the week.
Yeah.
And an early stumble could prove to be a lot more costly than than otherwise would be.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I think to look for in this event is Darren Moulding. When he's really good, it's not quite the same as the Miskew Homan dynamic, but when Darren Moulding's really good, Brendan Bottcher is just that much better because the degree of difficulty goes down for him. And I realize that's kind of a truism for all skips and all thirds. But with Darren Moulding, when he's going good, this team is almost unstoppable. And, you know, he had the emotional response to the loss last year. One of the things he said in that moment was, I don't know how many times I'm going to get back here. And I do wonder if we're looking at, if this team doesn't win in December or now November in Saskatoon, have they talked about this being the last run? And it was a run for a quadrennial and how that would play out. So it's possible that this could be the last time we see them in a Brier, the four of them all together.
Yeah, really sad to think that Darren Moulding, who is 2 weeks younger than me, is contemplating having this existential crisis of his curling life.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens after the quadrennial, like you say, but let's try and live in the moment, Sean. And for this week, they're going to be pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, no question about it. And I would
best social media, right, in men's curling.
Yeah,
not even close.
But yeah, I mean, that could be damning with faint praise. So let's go across the mountains, Scott, to British Columbia. Steve Laycock is back in the Brier once again. He is there, of course, Jim Cotter with him throwing the fourth stones. One of the great throwers is Jim Cotter, and John Morris just raves about him as a fourth stone thrower. Kind of an interesting thing, or a nice thing that they've done this year. Tyler Tardy will be there as the fifth. So great for Tyler Tardy to get into the bubble earlier than he would have otherwise. He'll be there for the mixed doubles and just get a sense of what the Brier game is all about. So it'll be nice to have him there. He'll probably get into a game or two, I'm sure. Scott, last year this team struggled, wasn't great. But again, they're a team that 2-5 last year, that they'll give you a game because they have so much experience and have guys who know how to play at this level.
Yeah, absolutely. All the way down at 44 in the World Curling Rankings. It seems crazy, right? Like,
they don't play much.
Well, like Mike Fournier is 34.
Yeah, but he plays more.
So I'm just saying that's I was a little surprised by that. But like you say, Jim Cotter, one of the best throwers ever. Swatsky's playing lead. Andrew Nerpin, I think, is back for his second year as the second. I might be wrong, but yeah, it's nice to see like Cotter, nicest guy in curling, right? Everybody will tell you that.
Everyone loves him.
We want to see them do well, but like you say, that they're in a really tough spot. Given the talent of everybody else at the Brier. So they'll be scratching and clawing for that fourth spot in the championship pool. And I don't think much else. The difference in pay is what they're looking to capitalize on.
Yeah. Get that extra $12,500 to get to that championship pool.
And then maybe once things open, they can play a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's head over to Manitoba. Oh, we only have two Manitoba teams this time. It's going to be very, very tough for the folks at Curl Manitoba to only have two teams in a field. So, but let's talk about Jason Gunlickson. He's there. One of our favorites, Scott, one of the best quotes in curling. He was very open over the course of the winter about the challenges associated. Should a Brier be a priority for Curling Canada? He was one of the more reserved players about the possibility of going into the bubble, but they are there as Team Manitoba for the second time, with Adam Casey at third, Matt Wozniak, and Connor Negevin at lead. And for them, they have also brought in a young world champion curler. Jacques Gauthier is going to be there as the fifth player. So Kathy Gauthier has her son and her nephew on board. And if there was ever a chance where we would have the fifth player's mics on, it would be in the BC Manitoba game, if it's a morning game and Kathy gets to call it.
Ooh, yeah, that'd be really fun.
And it is a morning game. I'll just say this, Thursday morning. There you go.
All right. So just before we get comments from listeners, Megan, this is for you. They are they are doing the same thing, branding the last team, the third team, as the wildcard team, and the other teams as the sort of the second teams from their associations. No need to stress over it because nobody had the chance to play. So they'll be wearing, I think, the brown uniforms that the Chelsea Carey rink was wearing. Also, though, the uniforms aren't going to look the retro look of the Scotties.
No.
They'll be going back to the more traditional of the last few years. Brier look. That was for the 40th anniversary of Kruger's sponsorship.
Yes.
So anyway, back, and the Jason Gunlickson team will have the traditional Manitoba gold color, I'll say, the yellow. I'm really excited that this will be my first chance to see Matt Wozniak since he left Mike McEwen's rink 4 years ago. He was announced by Gunner that he'd be back on early into the pandemic, that he'd be joining their team. Adam Casey moving up to third. It should be fun to see this team. Wozniak's one of the best seconds, I think, in the game. I really like the way he plays. Good sweeper, and should be a good teammate for these guys. I expect them to make it to the championship pool. I think they're going to get that fourth spot. Okay. What do you think?
I'm not as sure. We saw last year some inconsistency with Gunlickson. That opening weekend, they really struggled with the run backs. Adam Casey held the broom for him last year, but threw second. So this will be the first time where he's back in that third position. And I agree that they have, as we handicap it today, I would put them in the pole position for that fourth spot. But I'm not, like we said with the women's, there's just so much uncertainty about who has been on the ice, who hasn't. But there's one thing I know for sure is that no one's going to have more fun than Jason Gunlickson.
No, you're absolutely right. And we'll be hoping for some good quotes from him. He's a great interview and a great curling sort of thinker. You know, He's always thinking about how he can get an edge. You know, he's in the forefront of analytics.
Yep.
So yeah, I'll be looking to see what sort of advantages he can carve out of this unique Brier experience.
Yeah, we actually saw during the Scotties one day a team, I can't remember who it was, someone tried to employ the Gunner strategy of we score one, they score one, we score one, they score one, we score one, we win the game. But they gave up a 2 and lost the game. Like through the whole game, it was just ones back and forth. And I was thinking, man, Gunner must be proud of this. It's great.
Well, we'll have to see, if the fact that he coached Brendan Botcher's team, if that gives him any insight when he goes to play against them.
Yeah. Well, from what we could tell, the coaching was mostly like going to get coffee and hanging out. And no, he did more. Of course he did more. Gunner's great. Gunner's great. And the best media guide entry of all time when he was 35 years old and it said years curling 36. Just brilliant. Just brilliant. So let's head over East Coast now, Scott. Jimmy the Kid, your good friend and the person who got you on a plane. So he's back representing New Brunswick. Won last year's New Brunswick final. Great draw to the button to win that game. And that ends up getting him 2 spots into the Brier. Scott, what do you expect from James Grattan's squad?
Well, interesting. The most interesting thing I think about this James Grattan squad is they're bringing in Jonathan Buke from Ontario, former junior champion, I think with Tyler Tardy, to come in and play third for them at this event. He's a really good thrower, a great player. I saw him last year at the Ontario Tankard when I went down to watch. Strong player, and will be a very good addition to this team. There was a little bit of controversy, though. Have you heard this, Sean?
No, what's up?
That I think it was Matt Dunstone tweeted at him like, "Oh, you think that provinces should be represented? Like, why are you taking this guy from Ontario?" And anyway, James was like, "Because we don't have many choices." Like,
wait, Matt Dunstone said that?
I think it was Matt Dunstone.
Matt Dunstone, who played for Manitoba, who's from Saskatchewan, said that?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
So anyway, there was a bit of controversy about it. The other thing I heard from listening to the girls podcast is that Jonathan Buke is a rocket scientist, a literal rocket scientist.
Pretty cool.
Pretty neat, right?
Yeah.
Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's somebody else. But anyway, I thought it was cool.
Yeah. So what do you expect? I mean, this is a team that, I mean, they can draw, like Grattan can draw with anybody pretty much. So what do we expect from them? I mean, last year at this event, not the greatest of weeks to be sure. So what do you want from them, or are they a threat potentially to get into that championship pool?
I don't think so. I'll correct myself. He's a doctor, not necessarily a rocket scientist. But no, I don't think that they'll stick around for that championship pool. Like Jimmy the Kid, he can make the draws, like you say, and if he's throwing and if he's able to pick the ice up quick, I think they have a chance. It's always been the case since Russ Howard left New Brunswick or retired from curling, that the New Brunswick team has come in and had some trouble reading the ice for the first one or two draws. And once they get a hang of it, they're super competitive.
Right.
Given that not a lot of people have played this year, and it'll be, the first time this season for a lot of teams playing on that arena ice, we'll see how quickly they're able to pick it up. They're also one of the teams that's been able to play. They were able to play in, I guess their playdowns was canceled.
Yeah, they didn't play.
No. But they were able to play a little bit during the season, before things got shut down. So they've been on the ice, been able to practice. I think they'll be able to give somebody a game, like give anybody a game, but I don't feel optimistic for their breakthrough. And they're also playing wild card 1 first, and then Laycock, and then Botcher. So, it could be pretty tough out of the gate.
Right. Yeah. And I just want to correct myself. I believe Matt Dunstan's from Manitoba, now plays in Saskatchewan, I think, if I'm right on that. I just want to go back to that because I'm looking at this back and forth. Yes, that does exist between James.
Sean is actually is actually born in Kamloops, British Columbia. Lives in Kamloops.
He lives in Kamloops. Yeah. Now he lives in BC. I know that.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
All these people moving around, can't keep track.
I know, it's kind of crazy. But yeah, kind of an interesting back and forth there with Matt Dunstone and James Grattan. So, hey, maybe that'll be an interesting game when they square off.
If they make the championship
pool. Yeah, maybe that's why they're in different pools. They don't have to see each other. We don't want any ill will going on. All right, let's move down the list. Scott, Brad Jacobs is next. As I mentioned off the top, they played 3 times last year on Saturday to get out of the tiebreaker, losing the 3-4 game to Brad Gushue. Scott, a team that certainly can win whenever they step onto the ice. Last year, they had some struggles, lost some games that they probably shouldn't have, including that Gushue game on, was it Sunday night of the opening Sunday night of the Brier?
So. They were up big.
Yeah, scored 4 in the first end and gave it all right back pretty much. And a team that, with Mark Kennedy, I like them a lot more as just a solid, stable team with Mark Kennedy. And therefore, you would have to think that they're a definite threat to win.
Yeah, I think this team will probably win this event. Spoiler alert for my picks.
Okay.
They're really good. They were the best team last year overall. Through the whole season, I mean.
Yeah, through the season, yeah.
Not and
they weren't.
I feel like they've probably been thinking about that Brier from last year ever since they got home.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'd expect them to make it happen.
Yeah, and it's just a case of where are they, having not really had a chance to play and not living together, close together with Mark Kennedy, of course, out in Alberta. Does that make an impact? Probably not. They're all really good, and we'll see how it plays out for them.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move down the list. Northwest Territories, Greg Skog is there. Jamie Cooey, of course, withdrew from the Northwest Territories play down off the risk of not being eligible to play in other events had they had to withdraw from the Northwest Territories play down. So Greg is there. In his place, a team, Scott, that without Jamie Cooey, I would say that the Northwest Territories team might not be as much fun.
Yeah, probably not. I got to talk to Jamie last year at the Brier, and I really appreciated what he was doing in trying to, bring along the next generation of Northwest Territories curling. He had young guys playing with him, trying to mentor them, gave them some chances even to skip at that event. So yeah, we'll see a new team there. One of the players is familiar though, right? Is Tom Nogler on that team?
Yeah, Tom Nogler's on the team. Brad, he's at third. Brad Patzer at second, and Robert Borden, not to be confused with the former prime minister, of course, is going to throw the lead stones. So David Aho is there as the fifth. Another familiar.
Yeah.
Place.
So David was there and skipped a couple of games, or a few ends anyway, last year. So that's nice, bringing him along. And Robert Borden's been there before. Tom Nogler's been there before. So, it'll be familiar, at least for them. They won't be afraid of the bright lights in the competition. But that said, if they win one, that'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, they're playing Yukon. Yukon's in this pool. We'll talk about them. I mean, that's probably their best chance at a win. And I don't think they'll get a TV game, but if they do get a team game and they throw the first rock, what are the chances that Vic says, and to get us started, the Right Honorable Robert Borden? What are the odds that he does that?
If they get a TV game, 100%.
All right, let's move to the first of two wildcard teams in this pool. This is wildcard team 1, which will be branded as a Manitoba team on their jersey, skipped by Mike McEwen. Scott, of the 16 teams that were in the field last year in Kingston, Mike McEwen and his team was the team that I was the most impressed with over the course of the week. They had to come through the tiebreaker. They beat Glenn Howard in that game. I was there for the first couple of ends and then left and watched the rest of it on TV. And there was a few times during that game where the front end of Hodgson and Samalski were just so vocal and into it. And Reed Carruthers said, stop. Let's hear what Mike has to say. What does Mike want to throw? And that continued through the course of the week, where yes, Mike McEwen is the skip of the team, but Reed is kind of like the captain of the team, or at least that's how it played out last year, and was very much in control and recognized when Mike needed to just make the decision and go. And it was very impressive to see all week. It was kind of the biggest criticism that I had of the team in previous years, and definitely in that Manitoba final last year, where I don't care who they were playing. I don't think they would have won, just the way the dynamic was, at least the way it showed when watching on TV. I don't know what they did between the Manitoba final and the wild card game, but if they've continued that, this could be a very formidable team as we go through the week.
Yeah, and you're right. Reed Carruthers was, to me, the most impressive player at the event last year. I remember they were giving him his first team All-Star trophy, and they were taking the pictures, and he was very dejected because they had just lost.
Right.
And we're out. And so it was like, okay, now I got to smile for the camera. Like, it sort of just showed me like how much he cares about this and how important it is to him. And when he took control of that tiebreaker game, that was the mark to me of a real leader. And it really, really paid off for the team. So they, like they used to be called Team Carruthers and now they're Team McEwen. But I still think that Reed is the most important player on that team. McEwen might be the best shot maker, but Reed's the most important player. And if he's playing well, and if his attitude is very good and strong, they'll have an awesome week this week. I remember Colin Hodgson also telling us about how, they just, as a team, like, were able to sit down and talk about a lot of things, not just, the curling aspects of it, but like things in life. And by doing that, it really helped them gel as a team, come together. And once they were able to do that and sort of get over the communication issues, the talent really shone through.
Yeah, and so we'll see if that comes through this year. They went 6-1 last year during the pool play. They went 1-3 in that championship pool to get them into that tiebreaker where they lose to John Epping and Ontario. So we'll see if this year they can make that jump, kind of like what Laura Walker did this year. Is you get that good start. Can you sustain it through the course of the week? So certainly be curious to see how it works out for them, but definitely a formidable team there. As we move down to the next wildcard team, the team that will actually be branded as Team Wildcard, a team, or at least a skip, who has been formidable at this event in the past, has struggled in recent appearances. And this year, we're not entirely sure what his participation is going to be. And that's Glenn Howard, Scott. He is there as the third wildcard team. And as I said, they lost the wildcard game last year, but Glenn Howard has been in some sort of an accident. It's been reported. I can't remember the specifics of it, but he is injured. So Wayne Madaw is going to be there. And the way the announcement was worded by Team Howard made it sound like Wayne was there and would play a little, but it's also been interpreted that Wayne is going to skip the entire thing and Glenn isn't going to play at all. Do we have any clarity on what the composition of this team is going to be?
I don't at this time.
Yeah, because the announcement was worded weird.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like really excited to see this team play.
Really?
Because they're like so fun to watch. I think,
Really?
Seeing David Mathers
version of the team,
seeing David Mathers like gets you angry. I really like that. No, they're really talented, and Glenn has been sort of grooming Scott to take over as the skip for a long time now. We saw last year they played in an event down in Nova Scotia, and won the event on a great shot by Scott. Even if Glenn is hurt, I think they'll still be able to play without him, and having Wayne Madaw there as your guy who's filling in is really, really, really good. I don't think Wayne has played.
It's really, really, really good. Are you sure you don't want to take some English lessons?
Fine, Lola. So here I'll read the update from their team. That's what I was looking for. That's why I was not talking well. So the skipper Glenn is dealing with, as the pros say, an upper body injury. Shockingly, at 58 years of age, it's not quite healing the way the young 30-year-old doctor said it would. Insert laugh emoji. Therefore, Team Howard will be rolling with a 5-man team rotation. Wayne Madaw, with his young legs, will be taking on a bigger role than just Caesar Sunday connoisseur. Do not worry, Wayne has been on strict orders to not only quarantine, but to stay away from the slopes. See you in the bubble.
Yes, and the slopes reference is when Wayne Madaw broke his leg skiing before the 2016 Brier.
Yeah. So my interpretation is that Glenn and Wayne will sort of alternate skipping. Although like an upper body injury, does that affect your curling that much? I don't know.
I mean, if it's if your right arm is broken, you can't really play.
Well, it helps you to keep it straight. So I mean, I like watching this team. I was cheering for them last year in the wildcard game, Sean.
Okay.
I don't know. I just like them.
All right, that's good, and a lot of people do. And yeah, I think Glenn Howard has had a phenomenal career, obviously, and it is one of these things where keep playing, man, until you don't want to play anymore. And Scott could turn out to be a really good skip. And the more you play, the more you are in these events, the better it is for you and for your development. I don't think this team is as charming as they were when it was Glenn Howard with Richard Hart and Lang and Saville.
No, it would be hard to be that charming.
Yeah.
However, though, Sean, Carly Howard, his daughter, is awesome on Twitter.
Yes.
And when she takes over their Twitter account, it's very fun.
Yes, that is true. She is very good at running the Twitter account. So let's hope that they have some success. They'll get at least one TV game this week, I would think.
Oh yeah.
Maybe the Saturday morning, opening up against Mike McEwen. So maybe that pencil that one in as your TV.
Yeah, and
game.
they'll be back wearing the traditional black and red of Ontario.
All right, so let's keep on going. Final team in the pool, Dustin Mickelson, his team from Yukon. Scott, this is going to be a tough one for this squad. We saw with the women's side that they certainly struggled to generate points. They did take some teams late into the games, a couple of unfortunate breaks for them to lose some big leads, but I don't think we have super high expectations for them. We saw last year Thomas Scoffin was Team Yukon. He's a very decorated player as a junior, didn't have a great week. And if we use that sort of past as prologue, I'm not sure what we can expect from Dustin and the squad here from Whitehorse.
Yeah, not a lot of expectations. Absolutely. I'll correct myself before I get yelled at. Glenn Howard will be wearing the wild card team colors, and they will be teal and dark blue.
All right. Why did they start? I know the players hated the orange during the trials, but bring the orange back. Give the people who like orange something we want.
Absolutely. And so I don't want to give short shrift now to Team Mickelson. I don't expect them to win any games, or if they do, it'll be against the territories.
That would certainly be the expectation.
Yeah. This pool is stacked.
Yeah, it's a really good pool. They open against James Grattan. Seems like.
Yeah, I might be able to catch young Jimmy there.
Oh no, excuse me. They open against the Curling Canada site is broken. Draw 10 is at the top for some reason. They open against Brad Jacobs. My mistake.
Yeah. Thrown to the fire.
Yeah. So not great there. But again, it seemed like the Yukon women were having a lot of fun. And so hopefully they have a great week in the bubble and give us a couple stories and some highlight shots on the updates. That's really the hope.
There you go.
All right. So that is Pool A. Let's shift over to Pool number B. Scott, let's start here with Team Canada and Brad Gushue, a guy who for years and years and years just couldn't win a Brier. Sometimes could barely make the playoffs at the Brier, despite being an Olympic gold medalist. I don't know if you heard, but it was the 15th anniversary of that event during the Scotties. I don't know if you caught that. So now he has 3 Canadian championships in the past 4 years. And he is back to defend his title. What's interesting about this team, I think the most interesting thing about this team is they haven't seen each other since they won last year.
Yeah. Jeff's, of course, been in Alberta. So this team has played, Sean, Brad, Mark, and Brett, along with a rotating cast of Newfoundland junior players. And can you guess the record?
I think they went undefeated.
Yeah, they haven't lost.
Yeah.
So I think looks like 12-0. So yeah, they'll be fine. They're a great team.
They're good.
Maybe if they lose their first one, they'll look at Jeff and blame him. But I mean, this team will be there at the end of the week. No doubt about it.
Yeah, no question about it. And if you're looking at TV games, they're opening against Epping. As I said, that's already been announced as a TV game. Sunday night, it's against Cooey. Also will be a TV game. And then Monday night against Dunstone. Don't be surprised if that's your TV game either. So 3 out of the first 4 nights, we could get Brad Gushue on our TVs, and I will not be looking at Twitter mentions of in reference to the broadcast once we get to Monday. The other thing for this team, because Jeff hasn't been there, they've been taking junior players to these events. That is the case this year as the 5th position. Ryan McNeil Lambswood will be there. He's played with them a couple times this year. So great job there by Brad Gushue to foster that youth play in Newfoundland and Labrador. And I think he is very cognizant of his curling mortality and wanting to ensure that there are top level teams there in Newfoundland and Labrador once he goes to the booth.
Yeah. It's a really good job. Really good job by him to bring that along. And Brad Gushu, one of the reasons that he's on TV a lot, Sean, is not only because he's good, it's because he's good on TV.
Yeah.
I know a lot of fans just love watching Brad Gushu. I know Sherry, a friend of the podcast, is a big Brad Gushu fan. Got to meet him, take a picture with them a couple of years ago. Lots of big Gushu stands out there.
No question.
So when TSN gets the chance to put him on TV, they best not pass it up too much.
Yeah, he's very entertaining, and he gets the Chelsea Carey Award on the men's side for the best quote, I think, if I'm being honest. One of my favorite answers ever to a question I asked a curler.
Awesome.
When I asked, when we had, it was like 3 years in a row, the same playoff teams, I was like, Brad, what's up with that? Where's the depth? And he's like, we're the best skips. Okay. Yeah. Very honest. So let's move on. The second team from Newfoundland and Labrador this year, it's the one and only Greg Smith winning the Newfoundland and Labrador Tankard in a 12th end. We talked about it at the time. The opponent there had a wide open draw, just had to hit the paint in the 11th end and threw it through. Tough break, and then Greg Smith comes down, makes a beautiful shot with his final in the 12th end to win. Second time that we've seen Greg Smith at a Brier. Didn't go so great for him in terms of wins and losses. Made for some interesting television. He's a pretty emotional, evocative player out on the ice from what we've seen, and it'll be fun to see him back and see if he can improve on that performance that we saw in his first round. But as we said off the top, it's going to be really tough for anybody other than the big four to get out of this pool.
Yeah, really, really tough. They went 1-6 at the last event, but like you say, brought a lot of energy, brought a lot of energy and sort of like some passion to the game. He did break his broom once on a broom slam, I think.
Yeah.
I wonder how the lack of crowd will affect Greg Smith, if that'll sort of take away some of the energy with which he plays.
Maybe.
Remains to be seen, but always fun to have somewhat new faces at the Brier. So we'll see how they go, but I have no huge expectations.
No, and we'll see if they get a TV game. I'm not super confident that they'll get a TV game, to be honest. Maybe against Cooey on Saturday afternoon. I think it would have to be early if we're going to get it. Or Saturday morning Sunday morning. Sunday morning against Dunstone.
Oh, what about when they play Brad Gushu?
We already talked about it. It's Thursday night.
Yeah, I know, but I still think it could be fun. But they're not putting that on TV. No way.
No, they're not going to put that on TV. So let's move on to Nova Scotia. This is, of course, the great Jamie Murphy's team. Jamie Murphy will not be there. They pulled in Scott McDonald, who represented Ontario at the Brier in 2019. The man who launched 10,000 emails to Curl Ontario when that happened. We won't get into the details of why that happened or why that was a controversy within the province, because frankly, it's not very interesting. But Scott McDonald is going to be there. The team last year went 3-1 through the first 4 games and then lost to Alberta, Northern Ontario, and Manitoba in succession to go 3-4. Scott, they beat the teams last year they were supposed to. They lost to the teams that maybe they were supposed to go 3-4. I could very much see that that's the fate of this team this year.
Yeah, I think so. It's not. I got nothing more to say to that than that. Of course, Scott McDonald, referred to as the Golden God, in some circles. Could he win some games on his own? Maybe. No. Yeah, I could see him, winning some games on his own against maybe Mike Fournier or sneaking up on him at Dunstone. Probably not, though, right? He's probably that next one just below the top 4 or 5 in this pool.
Yeah, I think so. And that's why I think 4-4 could be the right record for them, that they lose to the big 4, they beat the other 4, and they're that sandwich team.
Right. Right. And Sean, do you think this team's expectations have changed at all without Jamie Murphy?
No, probably not.
Probably the same, eh?
Yeah, I don't think they would have come in with Jamie Murphy, especially in a pool like this, and been like, "Hey, we're going to win the pool."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they would probably say that they're going to go and compete, and they want to like win the pool and win every game, because of course you do. Like, to the late great Denny Green, you that's why you're on the field to win the game. That's why you take the field. But if you're looking at it, certainly based off of the precedent they have, they're a team that, and I think they said this, or at least Jamie said this last year, that the goal was the championship pool. So I would assume that would be their stated goal coming in.
Right. Makes sense.
All right, let's head up north. The final team from the north, Nunavut. Peter McKay is in this field representing the most easterly of the territories. Scott, a team that has not found the same level of success, or a member association that has not found the same level of success on the men's side as they have on the women's side, where Nunavut teams have won games. And last year, a few blowouts for this squad. A couple times they kept it close, 3-point games against Nova Scotia, Quebec, but generally speaking, they were all conceded well before the 10th end.
Yeah. Are we sure the pronunciation of Peter McKay? Peter Mackey?
Mackey? It could be Mackey.
So Peter was on that team
a
couple
Mackey.
of years
Excuse
ago.
me. Yeah, you're right. It's Mackey. My apologies to Peter and the team from Nunavut. It is Mackey.
So he was there a couple of years ago, right? With the team that we played in our event here in Ottawa.
Yeah, and it's not quite the same team this time. Jeff Nadeau is there, and we played against him. He was there the first year. Great guy. Like these are like they're if Jeff is an indication of the team, great guys, fun to be around. They'll have a good time, and hopefully for them, they play at least a couple close games.
Yeah, I think a goal of getting to the 10th end is a very good one.
Yeah.
And they've got Brady St. Louis as their alternate. I presume that is someone related to Dave St. Louis, who was their skip a few years ago. Yeah,
based off of the photo and the jersey he's wearing, yes, that would be the case. So great for them to be there. I'm all for having the northern teams there. I don't care if they go 0-8. That's fine. Let them in, develop the sport all across the country. So I'm definitely good with that. So let's move on to Ontario. John Epping, last year, of course, as the host team, lost to Northern Ontario in the final tiebreak. They won the first round of the tiebreak, lost the second round. John Epping and his team, 7-4 last year in the event. This year, I don't know. John Epping is the hardest player in the men's game, in Canada at least, to get a feel for. He can make any shot on the board. He can also miss any shot on the board. He doesn't have a textbook delivery. He's kind of all over the place. He can fishtail. He can do this and that. And he talks about this. I'm not this isn't my analysis. This is things that he has said about his own play, which makes it somewhat inconsistent at times. But then he can go out and win the Canada Cup. So I have no idea what to make of John Epping. Fun to watch. Fry is, I think, a better fit here than he ever was with Northern Ontario and Brad Jacobs. So, I just have no idea, though, Scott. I never do with John Epping.
Yeah, probably the highest variance between any of these upper echelon teams at this event, right? It's like you say, you could see him catching lightning in a bottle and, maybe 1 or 2 losses the whole event, winning the whole thing. Or you could see him, bottom of the championship pool.
Yeah.
Or I don't think I could see him missing the championship pool, given the group that's there.
It'd be hard.
It would be hard, maybe, but something would have to go really wrong. And for me, with John Epping, the key was always, would Matt Cam play up to a level that's needed to give John Epping, if he had the fewer choices he has for his shots, I think the better, because he's the kind of skip that is so good that he can make anything that it can cause them to overthink a bit. So, having the ends set up in the way that you want and the way that gives you a pretty straightforward choice when it comes to your shots, I think that's the way, and that's when John Epping's at his best.
Yeah.
Because as you say, he can make anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll look for that. We'll look to see, Ryan Fry, how his week goes, and Matt Cam, how his week goes. If they're up near the top of the tables, I think this team is a real threat.
Yeah, and that's why I say I think Fry is such a good fit for them, that he has all that experience. He knows the game inside and out. Not that Matt Cam isn't very, very good, but just Fry has that extra level of experience, and he has the ability to be more aggressive in the house, I think, than Matt Cam ever was. To say, all right, we're doing this, and let's not talk about it anymore. So that's why I like that fit here a lot more. They come out of the gate, Gushu Dunstone, welcome to the Brier. Like, so they could be 2-0, they could be 0-2. Neither would surprise me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then they get then it sort of eases up for them. They get Kui in that game Wednesday night that we talked about. That'll be a TV game, and so we'll see. Those are obviously the three big games for them. If they come out of this 5-3, it's going to be tough sledding to make it into the playoffs. It won't be impossible, but it'll be tough.
Yeah, they'll have to run the other table, or the other pool, and as we talked about, that other pool is pretty hard.
Yeah. All right, so let's head to the island. Scott, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Eddie McKenzie is back. Oh, you gotta love seeing big Eddie McKenzie there out of Brier. I don't know. I just like this guy. I don't know really why it is, but Eddie McKenzie, it's fun when he's there. Not really a threat to win the event, but a great guy, fun to see on the updates. And I don't know. What do you expect?
I expect him to go 3-5 in the round robin. I think, maybe I haven't looked at his schedule. But if he gets out, 2-1, we're going to hear Vec saying, Eddie McKenzie, bit of a surprise there to the Charlottetown Curling Club. It'll be, he's from the Crapaud Community Curling Club and Montague Curling Club.
Yeah. They're not saying that every time.
No.
They'll be in the truck and be like, "Hey, Vic, do you want to do an update from the PI game Mackenzie's throwing?" He's like, "Ooh, no, just
sounds like something for Kathy.
Just post the score at the bottom. I don't want to say the club. No, it's fine. It's fine."
So I think they'll beat Team Nunavut. I think they beat Mike Fournier at the last time that both of them were there by a point. So that'll be a good game. And I think they'll beat Greg Smith. So those are sort of the three I think that they can win.
Yeah. Well, all right, Scott, let me throw this at you. You said they might be 3-1. They might be 4-1.
Oh yeah.
Nova Scotia, then Wildcard 2, Kui, Quebec, Newfoundland, Labrador, Nunavut are the first five. If they're 4-1, and then they'll eventually be 4-4. In all likelihood, they finish with Canada, Saskatchewan, Ontario. Like they finished with the Murderers Row there in the last three. But Scott, they could be 4-1, and we could all be going nuts. How much fun would that be?
So Sean, that Wednesday night game, whether it's Wildcard 2 versus Ontario,
it's not going to be Saskatchewan PI.
PI Saskatchewan.
No.
4-1 Eddie McKenzie.
Well, he'd be 4-2 at that point. He would have lost to Gushu. It could be a 4-1 Eddie McKenzie against Gushu on Wednesday morning.
Yeah.
I would give you that. If Eddie McKenzie is 4-1, he's getting that TV game on
that morning
Wednesday
draw.
Morning. Yeah.
That'd be fun.
That would be good. We didn't get a PEI, or excuse me, we did get PEI games with Suzanne Barber. We didn't get a lot of East Coast coverage there. And on the men's side, it's going to be less. It's going to be Gushu and then everybody else scrounging potentially for a TV game. So it'll be nice if that is the case.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Eddie McKenzie back, always fun. You know who else is fun? Mike Fournier, Scott, representing Quebec for the second time. written some great blogs about the field and who should be there in his opinion, and what it's been like in this COVID year, what to expect in the bubble. I think a fun player, obviously a very good player, to make it to a Brier. And I think, Scott, best case scenario for us is he makes it. He goes 4-4. Maybe he goes 5-3 if he gets in the championship pool or not. But he's going to have some stories, and I think the blog posts coming out of this are going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. He's got, he starts with Greg Smith, then Brad Gushu, then Nunavut. So, Nunavut, then PI. So, like we talked for Eddie McKenzie, could be 3-1, 4-1. Maybe Mike Fournier comes out 3-1 out of the gate. And then, hope for a break in some of those last 4 games.
Yeah. Well, Scott, he's another one. He could be 4-1. His 5th game's against Nova Scotia. He also ends with Saskatchewan, Ontario, and he gets wild card too. He plays Gushu earlier, but he ends with the Murderer's Row too. So he could be 4-1. Yeah,
and that would be pretty fun. He's since last time we saw him at the Brier, Martin Crete has come over to play 3rd.
Yep.
I think that happened last season.
Big improvement, no question.
Big improvement at the 3rd position. A great shooter. We've seen him for a long time with Jean-Michel Menard, but also he skipped his own team, I think, 1 year.
Yeah, he did.
So, a lot of experience there for him. That should really help this team. I think that the first time Brier jitters are done.
Yeah.
But now you add Martin Crete and his many appearances. We don't have the media guide, so I can't figure out how many. But
a lot.
It should really help this team. And I could see them finishing 4-4, right on the fringe with that Nova Scotia team for just being out of the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean,
championship pool.
Yeah, there are games like the PI game, the Nova Scotia game. Those are games, even Greg Smith, he opens against Greg Smith, as you said. Those are games that they're not going to be the TV games, but those are games that in person you would want to follow and want to pay attention to, just to see, because that is that next tier of teams. And those games are going to be important if one of the top 4 stubs their toe somewhere, that those games against each other are going to be really important. So those are the games that are fun to keep track of when you're in the building.
Absolutely.
All right, let's head on down to Saskatchewan. And we got, Scott, the Sea of Green and the Sky of Blue out in the beautiful prairie province of Saskatchewan. Matt Dunstone is back, lost last year's semifinal. He was in the 1-2 game. Great week. Some just incredible wins at the buzzer for this team. Adam Kingsbury is there as the coach. I think more importantly, though, this is the first time we are going to see Kirk Myers on the team playing second, Dustin Kidby at lead, of course, Muskowie at 3rd. For as good as this team was last year, I think the addition of Myers improves them. So definitely a force to be reckoned with this week.
Yeah, somewhere Sean Catlin Schneider saying, "Hey, what did I do to you, man?" He's
good. Catlin Schneider is very good.
Yes, he's good. Kirk Myers is, I would say, a better shot maker. No slight to Catlin. Don't call me Caitlin.
Yeah, you know who else Kirk Myers is better than? Me. So
bold. Sean is very bold.
Yeah. I don't think it's insulting to say that Kirk Myers is a really good player. No, for sure. And so they sort of had their breakout last year, right at the Brier. Yep.
We'll see what the addition of Kirk does. We think it will improve their team, but a new player into a situation always changes the dynamics, right?
Yep.
They haven't had the chance to play too much because of the pandemic to really get their sea legs with each other. That said, they've played against each other for so long. They all know each other. It shouldn't be too hard to transition, but we'll wait and see. And you sort of worry sometimes with a team that broke out of maybe a sophomore slump, right?
Right.
So we'll have to watch for that. Adam, as their coach, is very cognizant of that being a possibility, and has them as well prepared as he can for this event. I'll expect them to be in the championship pool again. Will they finish second again this year? I doubt it. I think Team Kui is better. I think John Epping can be better. and Team Northern Ontario should be a little bit higher in the standings than they were last year. So yeah, that's sort of my take on the Saskatchewan team.
Yeah, and if you look at their record last year, it did take, as I said, some escaping to do.
Yep.
The British Columbia game, certainly, I think that was Monday morning, was a crazy finish on a big shot to win. Beat Canada by a point in that one. Manitoba, they won 9-8 in the championship pool. Crazy game there. So they did, but not to say that they got lucky, because you had to make those shots, and he made the shots. Yeah, so exactly. You wonder how much you can replicate that, and you don't want to be in a position, with all due respect to the other teams, you don't want to be in a position where you need a hero shot against British Columbia to win.
No. You don't want to need that, but at the same time, when you have a guy who can make it, it really helps.
Yeah.
So
yeah, the marquee game for them last year was the Thursday night against Gushu in the championship pool. They win 6-5. That was sort of the peak moment, obviously, because they lost the rest of their games, but that was really the peak for them in where they were. Excuse me, that was Friday night, not Thursday night. But that's that moment where you're like, these guys, they're real. Like, they're here to play, they're for real. And now we see if they can take that next step.
Yeah, for sure. Finishing second in the standings, and then losing that 1-2 game, and then losing the semifinal. They were very disappointed by that.
Sure.
So yeah, we'll see if they use it as motivation to come back hungrier, or if it causes them to slip a bit.
And finally, this last team, the 18th team in the pool, and Scott, the team that I think is the reason why we have 3 wildcard teams. It's Kevin Cooey, his squad out of Alberta. They are officially wild card number 2, changing the lineup this year. Colton Flash is no longer throwing the second stones. The great John Morris is stepping in. So that'll be a lot of fun to have John Morris back on TV. I think it'll be strange with Ben Hebert and John Morris sweeping together. I don't know how they'll be able to hear each other, because it's hard when you're talking over each other all the time. Neither of them are well, I mean, they both are very vocal out there. Basically give a running commentary of the game, which is great, which is super fun. We'll just see how it works together. Neufeld and Cooey, of course, as the back end. Last year struggled, I think, all week. Didn't really ever get into top Cooey form. Made a couple great shots to win games, but not what you would expect from this team from a normal year. Now we get the addition of John Morris. Definitely have to consider them a favorite as we head into the week.
Yeah, I think adding John Morris to the team sort of gives them a shot of energy that they kind of needed.
Yep.
Colton is a great player but he has like a lot of energy that when he's not making shots, it can turn a bit self-destructive, in my opinion. Sort of like he brings it sort of onto himself, right? Where he's sort of angry at himself, and if you're making all your shots and you're not experiencing that, then there's no limit to how great a player you can be. But when you let those things sort of creep in, it can hurt the efficacy of you and you as a member of the team. So having John Morris there, I think, John has done this too. Early in his career, he would let those sorts of things get to him a bit.
Yep.
But tons of experience, really great. I think he's going to hold the broom as the third, and BJ is going to sweep. So you won't have John and Ben sweeping at the same time, which is good. BJ also a bit of a stronger sweeper, I'd say, than John Morris, and I don't think he would disagree with that. I'm way more excited to see this team than I was last year, Sean.
Okay.
Morris, one of my favorite players ever.
Yeah.
And I think he sort of has the same kind of in the house energy that Fry would have for John Epping, right? Morris can say to Koo,
I don't know.
All right, this is the shot we got to play.
No, John Morris sees every option, sees every angle. I don't know if you need that with Cooey.
Well, no, because Cooey will be thinking about everything in his head, but John will be able to communicate to those watching at home.
what Kevin Cooey is
What?
thinking.
Yes, what those options are.
Yeah. Morris is basically a fourth person in the booth when he's playing. Like,
Yeah,
we do this,
great on TV.
they'll do
Great
this,
on
they'll
TV.
do this. This will be this. So I don't think it'll help in terms of speeding up the decision-making process for Kevin Cooey, which he sometimes needs, because you don't want to be in a situation where you look up and it's the 10th end and you have 90 seconds left.
No, you're right.
That could be an issue for this team, is the time management and keeping things going. Ben Hebert is the one who's in charge of that for this team, because he's yelling down a lot, like, let's go. I do think with the loss of Colton Flash, either BJ or John, whoever would be sweeping, it is a step down from Colton Flash. I would expect that we'll see Ben Hebert switch back and forth based on the turn is. We saw that happen a couple times last year. I think that will probably be the MO, especially on big shots this week, that Ben Hebert will be the dominant sweeper. So keep an eye on that as a nice little storyline of this team and how often they do it, when they do it, because you obviously don't want to wear Ben out over the first weekend. But when it comes down to critical shots, don't be surprised if Ben is going back and forth to be that inside dominant sweeper.
Yeah, I didn't think about that, but you're right. Colton is definitely a very strong sweeper, so downgrade there for sure. But this team will be there at the end of the week. Pushing for the playoffs, I'd say.
They always are.
They always are, Sean. Yeah. They always are.
So there you have it. 18 squads that are in the bubble as we speak, getting ready for things to kick off on Friday night. Everything is the same as the Scotties in terms of prize money. 300,000 up for grabs. Winners get 100,000. The schedule is the exact same with 10:30, 3:30, 8:30 Eastern time draws. There is no Monday morning draw unless something happens again. That was a bonus draw for us to get a Monday morning game. Nothing scheduled on Monday morning this time. Round robin through till Thursday. Championship pool Friday, Saturday, and then semifinal, final on Sunday. Tiebreaker if you need it. But what we just saw, we're running it back in terms of the format. So Scott, let's get right into it. 3 playoff spots up for grabs. Who you got in them and who's coming out on top?
Man, 3 is really hard in the men's game. Hey,
yeah.
I'm looking at things here, and I got to say Brad Jacobs. I got to think they'll be there.
Mm-hmm.
I got to think Brendan Botcher will too.
Okay.
And then am I going to be the guy who's dumb enough to not pick Brad Gushu to make the playoffs? Because I think I did that last year.
Maybe.
Can I say that Gushu and Cooey in a tiebreaker?
Boo. All out. Who wins, Scott?
The whole event?
Yeah.
I think it's Jacobs. I think they're the best team.
Northern Ontario to win, and then you got Alberta in the playoffs and a tiebreaker between Team Canada and wildcard number 2. I am going to go with no tie breaks this week. I'm going to go with Kevin Cooey and Brad Jacobs to make the playoffs, and I'm going to give it to him, even though it's fun. It'd be fun if he won the gold medal up next year and was the guy who just needed the Brier to cap off his career because he's won the juniors. But I'm going to go with Brandon Botcher. They get over the top. I think it would hurt my soul if they lost again. And I don't know any of them, and I really have no connection to them, and frankly don't really all that much care. But I think it would be so painful to see them lose a 4th one. More so, mostly for Darren, to lose a 4th win in a row. So I'm going to go with Alberta and Brendan Botcher to win.
Very good. Very good. Are you going to put some money on that, Sean?
Not a penny.
Not a penny.
No.
So you're very confident.
I have no confidence. There's too many good teams.
Well, Sean, I may have found a website where a little wager could be.
Yes, there are odds available. It is bettable if you want to go and put wagers on. The one I remember is just from the tweet that Botcher is plus 400 to win.
I think that was the case. That's right. If you buy me a little time, I can.
All right. Go for it.
find
Yeah,
this.
look them up. I'll also say that over at officepools.com, you can pick every game of the 2021 Tim Hortons Brier as it goes along. You just have until the start of the draw to make the picks for that draw, or you can pick the entire round robin play in one swath. That's what I did for the Scotties, and then you do it for the championship pool and then the playoffs as well. You can go through, keep track of your picks. Super fun to go through and do that. I went 49-23 in the round robin of the Scotties, 10-6 in the championship pool, and then I went 2-1 in the games on Sunday. There's more points as you go through later in the week, but it's just fun to have a way to track the picks. So that was a lot of fun. So they're doing that again for the Brier, and fantasy curling is available and open for the Brier on Curling Zone. Pick 6 teams. Each team has a value associated with them, and you have a cap of how much you're allowed to spend in that figurative money. It's not real, of course. And then it tracks based on points scored and wins and all that kind of stuff. So I encourage everybody to play along. Why not? It's another thing that you can do. I did poorly up the track on that. If Rachel Holman had won, I would have done a little better. But fun times over on Curling Zone and our pal Scott Chu, who helps to set up the fantasy curling. So Scott, what are the odds for the Brier?
So yeah, Team Canada, the best odds is plus 322. Northern Ontario, Brad Jacobs plus 359. Then Kevin Cooey at plus 411 and Brendan Botcher plus 443. Okay. Weird. You can also bet on who to win each of the pools in the preliminary play, and the longest odds to win the Brier, Sean. Nunavut. My goodness.
10,000?
It's 305. So 30,000 to win.
It's a lot.
Worth putting a shekel on it. No,
it's not. No. I'd rather just send it right to Peter Mackey and be like, hey, good job, man. Rather than to give it to the bet people.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, maybe, if you're Peter Mackey, maybe you bet on yourself just to have the slip and be like, hey, I bet on myself.
Yeah.
Cool little thing.
Yeah. Sean, my favorite sports gambling story is that I bet on the Pittsburgh Penguins to win the Stanley Cup when we were down in Vegas for one of the Continental Cups.
And won. Paid off.
They won. And so I think I won $400.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. Pretty good.
Yeah. I won $25 on that trip on the Brooklyn Nets. It's when they were really bad, and I'd seen them in person twice that year. And I was so mad at them, and it was even odds in the second half. And I just went, whatever it is against the Nets. And I won. What a spite bet. On
Very good.
Trip. So if you want to check out the odds, it's available online, but definitely have fun with the Brier, whatever it is you're doing. And as I said, fantasy curling in the office pool is totally free to play. A fun way just to hang out, and they keep track of all the standings and all that. So that'll do it for our Brier preview. 18 squads, only one will come out on top a week from Sunday. Another marathon 9-day event. Should be a lot of fun, though. We'll be along every day of the event following the afternoon draw for a little broom stacking over on the Facebook page. It's facebook.com/Game of Stones podcast. So check that one out. We're there hanging out, just talking about all the games, all the fun and frivolity of the bubble life out from Calgary.
Yeah. And Sean, we'll post the link if you want to come on and join us. Ask us some questions. You'll be able to do that, and you can ask questions in the chat too, and sort of guide the conversation a little more, because we want to make it feel like you just got off the ice and you're talking about the game.
Yeah. So we'll be over there every day around 6:30 Eastern time ish, depending on what the draws are like. And then as we go through the event, it moves up when the games go to 2:30 Eastern time. But so check us out over there, and to follow along with all that, follow on Twitter and Instagram at Game of Stones Pod. As I said, the Facebook page is Game of Stones Podcast. So you can find us there, follow like that, and you'll get the updates for when we go live. And do subscribe to this feed if you have not yet, wherever it is you get your podcast, likes, ratings, all that good stuff. Tell other people about the show if you like it. Helps us grow, helps keep us going. And we certainly appreciate when folks share information about the show. And head on over to GameOfStonesPod.com. All past episodes are there, plus a couple blog posts about Olympic qualification and the merch, which is, I think, in the process of being updated, but we'll update that on the live stream. We'll talk about some merch options when we get into the broom stacking. So head on over to GameStonesPod.com. You can check all that fun stuff out. So Scott, enjoy the games, buddy.
Thanks, Sean. You too.
I will try my best, and
we'll talk to you on Saturday.
Yeah, we'll talk to everybody on Saturday. But until then, keep those brooms on the ice and don't dump that intern.
Make the final.